When your partner suddenly stops saying, "I love you," do you actually know what they're trying to say? Yes, it seems like maybe they just forgot. Maybe they are tired. Maybe it slipped their mind after a long day. But behind that silence, there is something deeper that most people in relationships completely miss. The moment those 3 words disappear from your daily life, it is one of the most emotionally loaded things a partner can do. And if you misunderstand it, which most people do, you could be missing a cry for help, enabling a pattern that slowly pulls you apart, or pushing away someone who still loves you but has lost the language to show it. And here is something worth staying for. We will get into what a sudden reversal in this behavior means at the end of the video. And it is something most people wish they understood before it was too late. Most people hear the silence and fill it with their own worst fears. But the truth is more layered than that. And once you see it, you will never hear that quiet the same way again. Let us start with what that silence really means. So why does your partner actually stop saying, "I love you"? Most people assume it is simple. They are busy. They are stressed. They have a lot on their plate, and those 3 words just fell to the bottom of the list. End of story. But here is the thing. If being tired or busy was all it was, they would still say it at the moments when effort is lowest. Think about it. They still say, "Good night." They still say, "Drive safe." They still say, "See you later." Those are habits too. So why did this particular one disappear while all the others stayed? Because saying, "I love you" is not the same as saying, "Good night." It carries emotional weight. It requires a kind of vulnerability that the other phrases do not. And when someone pulls back from that specific phrase, it is almost never about time or energy. It is about something shifting in the emotional space between you. Gottman's research on what he calls emotional bids found that couples who last are not the ones who never fight. They are the ones who consistently turn toward each other in small moments of connection. Saying, "I love you" is one of the most basic emotional bids a person can make. And when your partner stops making that bid, it means something inside them has changed the way they reach for you. It does not mean they stopped loving you, but it means the channel they use to express it has closed. And that matters more than most people realize. And by the way, if your partner used to say it every single day and suddenly went quiet, do not brush it off. We will get into what that reversal really means at the end, and it is something most people wish they had understood before it was too late. Have you ever noticed that your partner avoids eye contact right around the time those words disappeared? Maybe they still kiss you goodbye, but something in the way they look at you has changed. That is not random. It is protective. In attachment theory, researchers like Amir Levine describe something called deactivation. It is what happens when someone with an avoidant attachment style starts to feel too close, too exposed, too emotionally dependent. Their system does not panic outwardly. It does something quieter. It pulls back. It starts turning down the volume on intimacy, one small gesture at a time. And "I love you" is often the first thing to go because it is the most emotionally naked thing a person can say. Here is what most people in relationships do not realize. When your partner stops saying those words, they are not just skipping a phrase. They are managing an internal flood of emotion that feels dangerous to them. They are protecting themselves from a closeness that, somewhere deep inside, they learned was unsafe. This does not come from you. It comes from patterns that were built long before you ever entered their life. But it plays out in your relationship because you are the one close enough to trigger it. 3 or 4 sentences cannot capture everything happening beneath the surface, but the core truth is this: their silence is not absence. It is a wall they built because the feelings got too real, and real has not always been safe for them. They may have grown up in a home where love was conditional, where closeness was followed by pain, where the safest thing to do was keep their guard up. And now, even though they chose you, even though they want to be close, their body still remembers those old rules. This is also why you might have noticed that things feel off, even though nothing obvious has changed. The words left, but the feeling that something is wrong showed up in their place. That is your emotional system responding to theirs. Ever wonder why this behavior shows up in some relationships and not others? Maybe it is the couple who said, "I love you 10 times a day for the first year," and then slowly let it fade to nothing. Maybe it is the partner who never stopped saying it out loud, but whose voice lost all the warmth it once carried. Maybe it is the relationship that looked strong to everyone on the outside, but felt hollow and uncertain on the inside. That pattern is not random. It is deeply rooted in how we learn to love. Esther Perel explains that in long-term relationships, there is a constant tension between what she calls the domestic and the erotic. The domestic is safety, predictability, comfort. The erotic is desire, mystery, aliveness. When a partner stops saying, "I love you," it sometimes signals that the relationship is tipped too far into the domestic. The words stopped because the spark that made them feel urgent, exciting, even a little bit scary, has faded into routine. It is not that they do not love you. It is that the word love no longer carries the charge it once did, and saying it out loud reminds them of that distance. Watch how this plays out. If they stopped saying it but still show love through actions, they are likely struggling with the gap between what they feel and what they can express. If they stopped saying it and have also become emotionally distant in other ways, they are pulling away from the relationship as a whole, not just from the phrase. If they stop saying it but get defensive when you bring it up, they are aware of the shift and are not ready to face what it means. And hey, if this is making you see your relationship differently right now, hit that like button and subscribe. It is the best way to help us reach more people who actually care about understanding what is really happening in their relationships. Does your partner withhold "I love you" as punishment after a fight? Let it fade slowly over weeks without explanation. Drop it during a specific stressful season, or stop saying it even though everything else seems fine. Each of these is telling you something completely different about what they need from you. Let us start with the punitive silence. This is the most painful form. It is when your partner knows you need to hear those words and deliberately holds them back after a conflict. They are not just angry. They are using emotional withdrawal as leverage. The silence is not empty. It is loud. It is saying, "You hurt me, so I will take away the thing that makes you feel safe." Now, the checking out silence. This one creeps in slowly. They did not make a decision to stop. The words just became harder to say because something in them is questioning the relationship. It is not dramatic. It is quiet and gradual. And that is exactly what makes it so easy to miss. What about the overwhelmed silence? This is the one people misread the most. Your partner still loves you. They are not angry. They are not pulling away on purpose. They are drowning in stress, anxiety, or emotional exhaustion, and saying, "I love you" requires a kind of emotional presence they simply do not have right now. The words did not disappear because of you. They disappeared because your partner has nothing left to give at the end of the day. And the cruel part is, you are often the one who sees them at their emptiest. So you absorb the silence as if it were meant for you personally. It is not. And then there is the safety silence. That is the one most people never see coming because it does not look like a problem. It looks like peace. Your partner stopped saying, "I love you," because they feel so secure in the relationship that they believe the words are no longer necessary. They assume you already know. But underneath, this means they have started to take the emotional foundation for granted. And that is the most dangerous silence of all, because by the time you notice it, the distance has already grown. Have you noticed that you've started walking on eggshells around your partner since those words went quiet? Maybe you catch yourself saying, "I love you" more often, almost like you're trying to fill the gap for both of you. Maybe you over-explain yourself after small disagreements because the silence has made everything feel more fragile. Maybe you rehearse what you're going to say before you say it, editing your own emotions so you do not rock the boat. That is not a coincidence. It is an emotional shift that the dynamic between you created. Researchers who study couples call this hypervigilance. It is the state where your nervous system is always scanning for signs of emotional danger because the safety signal you relied on, those 3 words, stopped coming. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability shows that when people feel emotionally unsafe, they build what she calls armor. You stop being open, you stop being spontaneous, you start performing a version of yourself that you think is more acceptable to your partner. Think about that for a second. Your entire way of showing up in this relationship, the way you speak, the things you say and do not say, how much of yourself you reveal, has been quietly reshaped by a pattern you did not even know was running. You did not choose to become more careful. You did not decide to shrink yourself. It happened slowly, word by unspoken word, until one day you realized you were holding your breath in your own home. Ever had a week where something was weighing on you, maybe stress from work, maybe a flicker of doubt about where things were heading, and your partner's behavior shifted before you even said anything? They got quieter. They seemed more guarded. Maybe they stopped reaching for your hand. That is not a coincidence. They felt it before you spoke a word. Partners who have been together long enough develop an emotional radar for each other. They read micro signals that most people would never notice. A half-second delay before you respond to a text, a slight change in the way you say hey when you walk through the door, the difference between a hug that lingers and one that is just going through the motions. And here is where it gets even deeper. Sometimes, the reason your partner stops saying, "I love you," is not about what they are feeling. It is about what they are sensing in you. They picked up on a shift in your energy, a distance you might not even be aware of, and their silence is a mirror reflecting something back at you. They are not just reacting to you. They are reacting to the version of you that you do not even know you are showing. That is the part of relationships that no one talks about. The conversation is not just in the words. It is in the space between them, in the timing, the touch, the breath. And both of you are speaking that language all the time, whether you realize it or not. Most couples go years without ever acknowledging this invisible exchange. They argue about chores and schedules, while the real conversation, the one about safety and belonging and fear, keeps happening underneath every single interaction. So what does it mean when a partner who stops saying, "I love you," suddenly starts saying it again? This is what I mentioned earlier, and it is something everyone in a relationship needs to understand. If your partner has been silent for weeks or months, and then one day the words come back, do not just feel relieved. Pay attention. People in relationships are creatures of pattern. When they break one this significant, something real has shifted. Sometimes the reason is emotional growth. They processed something internally, worked through the fear or the distance, and they are ready to reconnect. The words came back because the wall came down, and that is a beautiful thing when it is genuine. Other times, it is need-based. They want something from you. Forgiveness, reassurance, a fresh start. The words returned not because the feeling changed, but because they need you to believe it did. This does not make them a bad person. It makes them human. But it is worth noticing the difference between someone who says, "I love you," because they feel it rising up inside them naturally, and someone who says it because they need you to stay. And sometimes it is cyclical, a pattern of withdrawal and return that keeps both partners off balance. Attachment theory describes this as the push-pull dynamic, where one partner moves close and the other moves away, and then they reverse. It can feel like passion. It can feel like intensity. But what it really is two nervous systems caught in a loop, each one triggering the other without either person understanding why. Gottman's research found that the couples who navigate these cycles successfully are not the ones who avoid them. They are the ones who learn to recognize the pattern and name it out loud instead of just riding it. That awareness does not fix everything, but it changes the conversation from one of blame to one of understanding. And understanding is where real connection begins to rebuild itself. Because that silence, it was never just a habit. It was a conversation your partner was having with you in the only language they knew how to use. And now you understand what they were saying.